from the mobile Hudson Media Group studio right here in the Uribe compound. This is Talking Politics, and I am the professor, Fernando Uribe. There's a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've talked about it on this program repeatedly, and certainly in this political and social climate, the presence of liberals and progressives seems to be permeating on our news feeds on a daily basis. And while I don't want to paint with a broad brush, because I certainly don't do that with all conservatives, I certainly don't want to do that with all liberals as well. But ladies and gentlemen, I think it's hard to sort of argue the damage that liberals are doing to our society currently. And let me give you a little bit of a list that I've compiled about some talking points that should resonate with all of you. Folks, Hudson County is a very ethnically diverse county, to say the very least. We're the most densely populated county in the state of New Jersey, and quite arguably the most densely populated county anywhere in the United States. But more importantly, and not so much along ideological lines, but we're very diverse culturally. With so many Latinos and Hispanics residing right here in Hudson County, this is where you would think the Democratic Party could maximize their stranglehold on Hispanic votes. But what we're learning, ladies and gentlemen, especially in this climate, where there's a cancel culture going on, where there's a woke mentality that is overwhelming us on almost on a daily basis, it's turning off many Latinos and many Hispanics alike. And once again, folks, this list should resonate with a lot of you who are maybe not as center-right as I am, but maybe you're more in the middle. Maybe you're center-left. But for a lot of you in Hudson County, you're not very far left, and you're not also very far right. I think you're somewhere in the middle, almost to what I am, I think, maybe to some extent. But here are some talking points and lists specifically that should really strike a nerve with you because, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, it's something we're seeing all the time. And for a lot of liberals, when it comes to the way that they raise our kids, whether it's parents themselves or what a lot of school teachers are teaching our children today, it's very simple. They're teaching a generation of kids today that they're above the law, and as a result, they're shamelessly breaking the law. The idea of protesting is one thing, but the idea that it's okay to go riot and loot and engage in criminality, for whatever reason, the liberal media doesn't denounce it. And many liberals don't do that either. But you know what? They're complicit in it because they're contributing to this sort of climate. Okay? What I would argue also is many liberals are teaching today's kids this sort of mentality that they're entitled. And as a result, many kids today have zero work ethic. Ladies and gentlemen, I see this firsthand working in academia. And as someone who is employed in higher education, I have seen exactly what many millennials, what many Generation Y, and what many Generation Z type of students exemplify in their behavior. And folks, the only people we can blame, other than lousy parenting, is just the fact of liberalism being so in your face on a daily basis. That is another example of how toxic liberalism is to our children and to our society. I mean, just to give you a better perspective here, ladies and gentlemen, about what's going on, liberals are also teaching this generation of children that instead of conversing when disagreeing with a student in a class or having just a different opinion in general, that you're supposed to shut them out. Maybe even in some aspects be physically violent or even send death threats and attempt to harm anybody in any possible way, all while teaching fake tolerance. Folks, liberals are guilty of this. And I understand that some of you might say, well, Fernando, conservatives can be guilty of this behavior as well. I understand what you're saying with that. But guess what's overwhelming, not just only education, especially where I work in academia, but at the high school level, at the middle school level, at the elementary school level, in pop culture, in our news feeds, all right, in our mainstream media. What's dominating all of those institutions I just named for you? It's liberalism. It's a toxic behavior that is making it absolutely just insufferable to deal with people. I see it in the classroom all the time. I see it on social media. I see it with the unapologetic bias by the liberal mainstream media. It has to stop. It's something that is really killing our discourse and our dialogue. When we look at the idea that somehow we don't have to stress the importance of personal responsibility, that we don't teach kids today the importance of knowing basic math or the fundamentals of economics or the fundamentals of biology or the fundamentals of environmental science. All of the aforementioned subject matter, ladies and gentlemen, have a place, but they need to be taught correctly. Okay? The idea that many students today, because of liberalism, struggle with basic math, and they're always about free this and free that, or the idea that they struggle with biology. Folks, I took high school biology, and here's a newsflash. There's only two genders. The idea that we're seeing multiple genders, or even for the Hispanic community, to hear the term Latinx, it's insulting. It's Latino or Latina. Again, we're reinforcing the narrative that there are two genders. So if you struggle with high school biology, that's okay. You can take the course online or just Google some basic literature. But that's what liberals are trying to stuff down the throats of our kids today. The idea that, hey, biology doesn't matter. You know what? There's multiple genders. No, folks, there's only two genders. Please stop with your nonsense. Okay? Stop with your nonsense about not knowing about basic math and where you just think it's tax, 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 and spend because the government will take care of us. That's not encouraging personal responsibility. Or the idea about how government works and whether or not to convey responsible economic curriculum. That's something that liberals are not doing, whether it be at the local, state, or even national level. And these are the things, ladies and gentlemen, that I've been trying to denounce forever. And I'm hoping that you start to wake up to it. It's an election year. And while I'm not here to endorse anyone, I think you know where I stand ideologically. The idea that many within the Democratic Party are pushing these radical liberal ideas down our throats on a daily basis. It's time for us to wake up. And more importantly, it's time for us to speak up about how evil these ideas are, about how harmful they are, about how toxic they are to our political discourse and our dialogue, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in the home, even having dinner at the kitchen table, whether it's out in public speaking with friends at gatherings. It's about being reasonable. It's about being rational. It's about being logical. And folks, in today's political climate, a lot of liberals aren't practicing what they preach. They may say they're all about tolerance, but we all know in the end it's all about fake tolerance. So we need to call them out, and we need to call them out as quickly as possible, because the damage that they're doing to every fiber of our society at some point is going to become irreparable. I don't know what type of country you want to live in, but that's certainly not an America that I want to reside in. And after we just celebrated the 244th birthday of the greatest experiment in democracy, yes, these United States, the last thing I need to see is us losing a culture war and a war of ideas to a group of people in this country that are proving to us time and time again how intellectually bankrupt and, quite honestly, how insincere they really are in today's political discourse. Folks, it's time to wake up. We can't take it for granted anymore. We need to call these people out, hold them accountable, and make sure that they stay accountable. And that's what I'm thinking about right now.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.
In the latest edition of the 3-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, which you can listen to live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson, was tapped into columnist and the Dean of Hudson County Journalism himself, the great Al Sullivan. We talked for over 90 minutes on a variety of different topics, and here are some highlights for your consideration. First and foremost, we discussed recent breaking news where Jersey City Wardee Councilman James Sullivan decided to not back the incumbent U.S. Representative Albio Ceres during the upcoming primary and instead chose to support his progressive challenger, Hector Oseguera. Let's check out what Al had to say about this.
But a question I wanted to ask you today, because it was sort of breaking yesterday. It was posted on his Instagram, and it's obviously made its way through the news cycle a little bit and social media. But what do you think of Councilman James Sullivan in downtown Jersey City, kind of going against the grain and not supporting the incumbent Albio Ceres in the primary for U.S. Representative in our congressional district, but supporting his very progressive challenger, Hector Oseguera? What are your thoughts on that, man? Surprising.
Basically, he's rolling the dice, okay? He's gambling that the progressives are strong. I mean, if he's going to get that progressive vote, this is now, because I don't think I think the cycle is eventually going to start wearing out, and progressives are going to become less potent in the future as a voting bloc. I think he's rolling the dice now. If he can get one or more of these candidates in against CHCDO, then he positions himself to run for mayor next year.
Without a doubt, that endorsement by Councilman Sullivan will send a ripple effect throughout the HCDO, and we'll see what sort of ramifications it'll have on him if Albio Series does indeed win on primary day. Secondly, we talked about the controversy concerning the vote by mail, which is what is going on in New Jersey as primary day approaches. Let's check out what Al had to say about it.
I suspect the same thing too, Al. I was very surprised. I know I reached out to Albio's office. I have some contacts there. Speaking with some people there, they were surprised. They were disappointed. But this entire cycle right now, because again, primary day A was moved to July because of COVID, and B, due to Governor Murphy's executive order, it's vote by mail only. I have my reservations about vote by mail. I think you've heard me talk about it on this program. After that disaster that we all learned about last year in Hoboken with Frank Rea and those despicable people that he associates with. And we get it. People just dismiss it and said, well, he didn't win. He had no chance of winning, so what's the big deal? Al, I take concerns about vote by mail seriously. And I think a lot of people in Hudson County have those same concerns. They might not voice them like me, but I think they have them.
Well, it's true. Vote by mail, registering by mail in some states is risky because there's not the usual checks and balances. And also whoever's helping you do that gets to see how you vote. I had a problem last year when they wanted to allow people to take selfies, cameras into the voting booth for the same reason. In other words, the point of a ballot is that it's secret, and so no one knows. But if you can manipulate it and you can maneuver people into a place where, you do this, you can threaten them, you can do a lot of things to make sure they vote your way. Plus, the state ballots are screwed up. The mails are screwed up. They're going to odd places. Some of them are not even going to get any place in time. I mean, you're basically screwing up the entire structure of what voting is about, which is a guaranteed one vote for one person. Because you lose the thing in the mail, that's it. You've lost that shot. You don't. And with a vote by mail only, you can't even do provisional. In other words, it's your shot. This is it. If you don't get it in the mail, it's gone. If somebody manipulates it, and there's a lot of. I mean, Patterson is another example of voter fraud. There is. Yeah. I mean, Democrats like to play this idea, especially when Trump suggests something that there's voter fraud, and they say it doesn't exist, and then you have massive instances where it is. Poopy's one of them. Patterson's another. There was a clerk out in Wisconsin that got caught, that got charged. I mean, and it happens, and it is, that's the American political system, how to fraud votes. Back in Haig's day, every graveyard had a lot of votes. It's a little different, but it's the same mentality. And that's the problem with voter. And also, this favors the incumbent. Okay, it's simply, the way it is established, you're basically guaranteeing that the incumbent has the best advantage because, you can get the vote by mail out easier for your incumbent than you can. The other side has to go and dig out, and with COVID in the place, how do you go to people's houses? How do you campaign? How do you get people's votes? I mean, it is such a ludicrous concept, but it's rigged for incumbents. And so, that's why I think, somebody, is going to have to re-examine this concept here and the governor's choice. And I'm not saying he did this deliberately, but it's in the Democratic Party's interest for him to have done it.
Lastly, we decided to talk about the chances that U.S. Representative Albio Sires, should he win on primary day and consequently win on the upcoming general election in November, whether or not he'll decide to keep running for the foreseeable future. Let's hear what Al had to say about U.S. Representative Sires' future.
Now, the question is, again, sources that I talked to tell me this might just be the last run for Albio because he may not even want to attempt it in 2022. What are you hearing, or is that maybe something that hasn't been discussed yet internally?
I have not heard that, but there was a thought about this when he ran last time, that he was going to get one more shot, that there was sort of an unspoken agreement, and that at that point there would be somebody to decide, what kind of candidate they want to replace him. That's been talked about for a long time. It would make sense because, to tell you the truth, the current atmosphere is not Albio's type of politics. Albio has always been one of these people, a consolidator. He pulls together, he makes deals, he has his own base belief, but he is one of the people who could cross the aisle. He proved that when he was working Trend. He could cross over and get votes that he needed from the Republicans. That's no longer possible, and I don't think it's much fun. I don't think being in Congress right now for someone like Albio when you have somebody like, Pascrell, who is a firebrand, who throws rocks all the time, it doesn't matter. He doesn't cross over. That's not what he's doing. That is not. But Albio has always been somebody who would walk into Congress and talk to any Republican. And, with respect, that atmosphere no longer exists. And I think it's not a lot of fun anymore. And I got that sense a while ago that he was not having fun.
I agree. And to make matters worse, when you have to go to work and you're dealing with, leftist ideologues and, just radicals like AOC, Ilhan Omar,
my
Ayanna
favorite
Presley,
girl.
Yeah, Ayanna Presley, Rashida Tlaib. And you have other longtime radicals, Jerry Nadler, those clowns that have been in the House forever, and then you got the new blood. I can imagine it's probably exhausting. Listen, at the end of the day, my mom is Cuban. There are certain Cuban characteristics that I'm going to retain just because it's genetics and everything else. But, Albio has always been, again, maybe a center guy. Maybe early in his career he was more center-right, now he's center-left, but he's always been in the center. And being Cuban, the idea of just having to go to work and tolerate, these radicals, like the Squad, or these longtime other idiots like Nancy Pelosi and Jerry Nadler and Adam Schiff, I'm pretty sure it's exhausting for Albio to have to go to work and see these people that are working, let's be honest, to just undermine democracy. And that's what they've been doing for a while. I don't want to sound like a right-wing blowhard, but it's the truth. It must be infuriating to go to work and have to deal with people like the list I just gave you.
Well, we're watching, what the purpose of these groups now is to destroy Western culture. It literally is that is exactly what they want to do. I can't remember the name. In our day, it was counterculture. Now it's something else culture.
Cancel culture.
Cancel culture. What's that?
Yeah. It's the cancel culture. They want to cancel out.
What they really do. The reason why they're eliminating Western Civ from colleges is because they want to destroy that influence in America. That's what they're doing. That's their goal. That's their function. And and the problem is these are ignorant people for the most part. They don't know what they're destroying. They read Howard Zinn and they think they know history. And they come after you with these very limited, narrow pieces of information that they think is truth.
Once again, it was a very informative and educational episode, to say the very least. And I always look forward to having Al Sullivan on whenever possible. And you can listen to the episode in its entirety, once again, by going to www.blogtalkradio.com patreon.com/Talk on the Hudson. I bring you the exclusives every single week right here on Blog Talk Radio, and I'll keep doing that throughout 2020.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.
And now to some local stories for your consideration. And first off, we'll start off in Jersey City, where black activists within the city itself are calling for the firing and actual indictment of a police officer who was using a baton during a recent brawl in Bostwick Avenue. Let me just give you some details here to sort of unpackage what's actually going on. And a shout out to John Hines with the Hudson County View for his report on this story. Now, according to NAACP PAC Chair Chris Gadsden, who actually is a former councilman in Jersey City, who released a statement this past week. And he said the following, quote, "We challenge the county prosecutor to actually go forth with indicting Officer Bryant Rowan and anyone who was on scene on May 5th using that type of force. We do not want people to get slaps on the wrist. We want the same types of justice that's taking place in Minnesota, that's taking place in Buffalo as well. The city owes the rest of us on Bostwick, the Gregory family, and everyone else an apology for what took place with their police department and the lies and the falsification of reports that went forward to justify the police actions that took place on May the 5th. Now, on the morning of May 6th, Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop, along with Public Safety Director James Shea and Police Chief Michael Kelly, held a joint press conference stating that they felt that the officers showed restraint after someone was trying to grab one of the nearby officers' weapons. Now, Gadsden and others pushed back on that narrative a couple of days later, calling for Rowan's suspension after new cell phone videos surfaced from the incident, and they actually came to light, which received, as a matter of fact, over 18 million views to this date on the Hudson County View Facebook page. Now, following the release of 23 body camera videos from the incident by the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office, Gadsden was joined by others, such as Frank Gilmore, in calling on the administration for an apology and an actual explanation. Now, Gilmore also went on to say, quote, you can clearly see the action in the video of the young man pushing the officer. We're not here condoning any violence placed on anyone, especially not the officers who serve and protect our community. But when you put out a narrative that the officer's service belt was tugged at, and then you show us a video that clearly shows he did not tug at the officer's belt. Now, Black Men United Jersey City founder Nevin Perkins specifically added that he was particularly put off by Rowan's actions since one of the men was hit with a police baton 7 times after he had been sprayed with mace. Now, city spokeswoman Kimberly Wallace-Ciccone went out in a statement doubling down on the administration's initial position, including a 4-second clip that showed a man's left hand touching an officer's service belt near his gun before appearing to shove him away. Now, the city stands by its previous statements, and this administration has a record of disciplining and actually firing officers that use force unnecessarily. In this situation, however, the facts are that several officers were assaulted by the public, as verified by both the body camera and independent video. Now, folks, let me just sort of give you my 2 cents on this matter, because if you've watched the video, whether it be at the Hudson County View's Facebook page or on their website, or as it surfaced all around social media, it was a very disturbing brawl, to say the very least. Now, should it surprise you? It really shouldn't. I mean, it's in Bostwick Avenue. For any of you that know that really awful part of Jersey City, you can almost expect a brawl on a daily basis. So it's not exactly one of the more attractive parts of the south side of Jersey City. It's certainly a place you want to avoid, in the daytime, much less in the evening, because a lot of the shady characters that walk around there, and to be honest with you, it's not the most sanitary place to be around, and it's certainly not one of the more orderly places in Jersey City. And by the way, that doesn't make me a racist or a bigot, nor am I dog whistling here. Folks, this is all stuff we know. If you know anything about Jersey City and some of the bad neighborhoods, we know that Bostwick Avenue is let's be honest, one of the hellholes in Jersey City. So again, before this triggers anybody, calm down, and you know that I'm right when I'm trying to describe that area. But more specifically, folks, when you watch that video, it is very disturbing. You're seeing residents being very rambunctious with the police. Now, again, we know that a thorough investigation is taking place, and I'm sure we'll find out more details in the weeks and months ahead. But without a doubt, when you're looking at the video, listen, folks, a person can make the case that the officer could have been in imminent danger with one of those individuals reaching for his weapon. We're never going to know, for sure what the intent was there. But again, folks, optics matter. And, when it comes to a police department, when it comes to a police director or the chief of police or even the mayor himself, when they have to answer to the community, it puts them in a tough position. But more so, I know that Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop, along with Police Director Shea, have a responsibility to the JCPD to protect them, to stand up for them when they're right, and to also hold them accountable when they're wrong. And right now, folks, I think it's still very early to say what went right here and what went wrong in this awful incident that took place on Bostwick Avenue. I'll certainly, keep giving you more updates on this program. But without a doubt, ladies and gentlemen, let's remember where it took place. It's something that shouldn't surprise us. But by the same token, nobody should be treated brutally or be, wrongfully attacked by police officers if they can avoid it. And if they didn't deserve it, more power to them to hold the city accountable. But as I just read to you before, even the city spokeswoman is doubling down on the city's position as to the officer's life being in danger. And that's all you need, folks. If you can prove that in today's court of public opinion, much less a court of law, you're going to have the public on your side. That might not be the case with everything that's going on in our political and racial climate today. But without question, in Jersey City, this is a story to definitely keep an eye on. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air, please go to their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com, www.livestream.com/hmgtv, and www.njonair.com. Don't forget to like them both on Facebook and follow them on Instagram and Twitter. And don't forget that live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m., you can listen to the 3-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. And always remember, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always talking politics, right here with the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air. I'm Fernando Uribe. Thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.